Guys who got told no during a failed marriage proposal. What happened afterwards? My 7th grade teacher brought his girlfriend to school to propose to her in front of our entire class, and she said no. It was the topic of discussion almost every day that year, and he ended up moving schools at the end. We're starting off strong. What was this guy's thought process? Oh, well, she can't say no to me in front of a bunch of children, right? Yeah, absolutely can. And did, apparently. Next story. My mom's boyfriend proposed to her 3 months into dating. She was 40, had one disastrous marriage and subsequent divorce under her belt by that time, and she felt like it was too soon in the relationship to be talking marriage. He accepted her no, but said he wouldn't ask again, and hey, he hasn't. They've been together 25 plus years now, and never married. We'd been joking around about it for months. I'd say sarcastically in the most unromantic way, and she would say no. We'd laugh and move on with our day. I'd apparently conditioned her so well that when I asked her for real, she flippantly turned me down. Everyone around me either gasped or got this real awkward look on their face. She changed her tune real quick when she actually looked and saw me holding the ring. We've been married 17 years now. Good times. Next story. I had a foreign student at my university. I'd only spoken to them on the phone a few times, and I'd never met them. They called my father on Christmas morning of my freshman year. He asked my dad for my hand in marriage. They talked for ages, and my stupid father said yes. He was so out of touch with my life, he assumed the guy was my boyfriend. My dad thought I'd be thrilled. The idiot. Next story. Not my own experience, but I was in the restaurant when a failed proposal happened. Somehow the guy was able to get the families involved in this fancy dinner, and the girl didn't know what was going to happen. He orders their drinks, where he had the ring cleaned and then placed at the bottom of her pina colada. She gets up and goes to the bathroom, and that's when some of her family moved in close with their cameras and phones ready for the proposal. She comes back, and the drinks are brought. She refuses the drink, much to his dismay, and she doesn't get the hint. She does not want it. You should have your drink. It's really good. She again says no. This goes on back and forth. Finally, she says no and is disturbed by his pushy behavior. I hear this from my table. I can't marry someone who won't respect my boundaries. She gets up and walks out of the restaurant. The guy sits there waiting for her to, cool off, but she doesn't come back in. So he fishes the ring out and has the drinks taken away. She comes back in near the end and he shows her the ring and tells her it was in the drink. She slaps him and says no. This time she is angry and she leaves. Everyone packs up and heads to pay. He just sits there by himself. I wanted to get up and say something, but my date was ready to go home. This sounds a lot like she knew what was going on and wanted no part of it. Definitely a sad situation, but it also sounds like one where he didn't talk about getting married to her beforehand, which is, something you should probably do, for the record. If you're planning on getting married to someone, talk about it first. The question should not be the first they hear of marriage. Absolutely not. Next story. She was graduating with her master's. I still had 2 years left for my PhD. I floated the idea privately. She said, "If you ask me formally, I will say yes, but if you really love me, give me a year to prove to myself that I can live on my own." I said, no problem. She moved to her job down in New Jersey, and next I heard of her, she was engaged to another guy I knew. I took that as a bullet dodge, another life lesson learned situation. Next story. Was with a girl for a couple of years. I started talking about getting married. She was up for it, but kind of distant about it. I take her out ring shopping and she breaks it down, tells me she can't marry me. I was really confused. I thought things were going great. Turns out, I was just the guy taking care of her until her ex gets out of prison. I paid for her schooling, helped her get off drugs. We were looking at houses. I thought we were making a life together. She left me not too long after that. He got out of prison a few months later, and she went back to stripping. I ran into them a few times, and I guess she's happy. Next story. Not a guy, but a girl. I asked my boyfriend to marry me. I didn't do a whole scene about it. We were talking, and I said I wanted to get married, and I felt ready for it, and he just said no. I was mad. He had never mentioned this, and we've talked about it before. All he had ever said was that he didn't want it because it was expensive and didn't want a big party. So, in my understanding, we would get married at the courthouse and have a small gathering with family and close friends. Then I found out he didn't want to get married because his parents had a divorce and he didn't want to go through that. It took a while to unravel all of his issues with marriage. At a certain point I said, I'm not going to wait around with a guy that doesn't want to get married. I'd always been very clear about wanting to get married. He disagreed and said, I've also mentioned I didn't want a big wedding, and I'm like, what? We realized we were both talking about different things. He had put together marriage and the wedding all in one, and I didn't. Still, obviously it wasn't solved right then and there, and I gave him some time to think. After like a month, I came back to the subject and he asked me why I wanted to get married. I talked about all the laws that protected the couple in the eventuality of disease and death in owning property, insecurity if we had children, etc. He suddenly just said, oh, I didn't know about that. Yeah, we'll get married then. We've been happily married for 5 years. Almost every day he says he's so happy being married to me and that his wedding day was one of the happiest days of his life. I don't know if I've ever seen a better example of just oblivious, kind of stupid dude behavior. And I want to be clear, dude behavior is not gender specific, but I feel like just the phrase evokes a certain vibe, you know? It gets the message across. And this is for sure dude behavior to me. I'm glad it worked out, OP. Next story. Technically, she said yes, but then we went to surprise her family with the good news and her parents immediately told us to break it off. She wasn't going to spend her entire remaining life with a black man. We just broke up and moved on. I found a way better girl from a non-racist family. We're married with 3 kids now and are doing great. Ex is a drug addict in Kentucky, but at least she's married to a white man, living paycheck to paycheck, mind you. Next story. Not the guy here, but the naysayer. He had just finished a 1,000-mile solo cycling tour, and I met him at the finish. I was so caught up in his achievement that I didn't see the proposal coming, and I was shocked. So I told him right there, I love you, but I can't give you an answer right now. Of course, there were tears, and we both called family members and then continued on our planned holiday. We had such a good time on our holidays, and we were able to enjoy each other's company like normal. So I figured if we can handle this bump in the road, we're a great team. And at the end of the holiday, I told him I would love to marry him. That was 7 years ago, and I haven't regretted my decision for a second. I simply needed time to process a life-changing choice, and my partner was mature enough to understand it. Next story. Not my story, but told from our jeweler when we were buying our wedding bands. So a guy comes in to buy an engagement ring. The jeweler sits down with him to talk about design, cost, and what have you. Our jeweler always asks people about how they're going to propose. She likes to share in the excitement. The guy brags about how he is going to propose to his girlfriend at a ball game, on the big screen in front of the entire stadium while his favorite team plays. As the guy's speaking, the jeweler notices everything is focused on the guy. From the ring to the proposal, no single mention of what his girlfriend likes. Our jeweler gets a bad feeling and sells him the ring. Not long after, the guy comes back in with it. The girlfriend said no, which really didn't surprise the jeweler. Next story. Guys, if you're reading this thread and want one strong takeaway, always talk to your significant other and make sure they want to marry you before proposing. I know the movies from the old days make it seem like it should be a surprise, but it really shouldn't be. It should be something you've been talking about for a while, and it should come after you've had multiple talks about you and your future together. No one likes to have to devastate someone, and a lot of hurt feelings can be avoided with communication. Let the moment that you propose be a surprise, but the fact that you would propose at all be pre-established. Next story. My friend proposed once, and she said no. It was very early in their relationship. She said she only feels comfortable marrying him if they bought a house first. 10 years later, he's afraid to ask her again because she has a standard of how she wants to be proposed to, with a fireworks show, a tropical beach area, all her friends watching, and a big diamond ring like the videos she's seen on TikTok. But now all of her friends are getting married around her, so she wants him to propose again. It's a weird waiting game for the both of them. A waiting game for what exactly? Because I see a waiting game, but not one that leads to a marriage, if you get what I mean. This relationship is going to crash and burn. They clearly have very different expectations around this, and when that's the case, I don't think either of them are going to be truly happy with what happens, if anything at all does happen. I feel like after 10 years, it's just sunk cost fallacy at this point. I obviously don't know anything else about the relationship of these two, but if I had to guess, I would imagine this isn't the only area in which they differ pretty greatly. Next story. I got everything ready, and she said, no, at least not right now. And it sort of muted the rest of the weekend. Several people heard I was going to ask and congratulated me the next week. It was surreal informing them she said no. It should have been a wake-up call to just end it there, but neither of us wanted to. We were our first everything, and we had a lot of history. I guess I thought it would just work out, but her reservations on being married at that time never really went away. I admitted that both of us wanted opposite things. Our lives were headed in different directions. Any compromise just meant someone was going to be resentful. When we started dating, both of us really helped each other out in a lot of areas and through some really challenging times. But we learned later on that things that were great then might not be great now. Both of us were good people, but some things just have a lifespan. We got what we needed, and it was time for the next phase of our lives apart. A huge part of successful marriages requires compromise on small issues, but some issues have no compromise. It's okay to fight for things if there's a way that both of you can get what you want, and there's no shame in letting things go if there's nothing more that can be done. We broke up 7 or so months later. Restarting life for what was for me the second time was tough, because I was also going through a lot of other things and she wasn't able to be there anymore. The same thing was happening on her end, so it just kind of ended there. We both dated other people and got married to others eventually, so in the super long term, it was all okay. Next story. I said no because he was an addict. I wasn't, but I was young and dumb. He showed me by running out and marrying an Asian woman with 2 kids 6 months later. She used him for a green card and he adopted her kids, so now he's got to pay her child support. I learned this because his mom came by my parents' home to catch up. My mom said it was beyond awkward. I broke up with this fool when I was 17 and she was trying to reconnect us. Bruh, I'm 34, happily married, and we have 4 kids. Kick rocks. Next story. High school sweethearts. On again and off again through college and after. 9 years in total. Planned a trip, and as we were leaving, she said, "I hope you aren't going to ask me to marry you." Ring stayed in the bag and tried to enjoy the awkward trip, but I was pretty devastated. She got married to someone about 6 months after that. A few years later, I met someone with whom I understood what a relationship should be. I traded in the original ring and have been married for 19 years now. Both she and my 2 kids are amazing, and I'm super thankful things worked out how they did. Next story. My dad proposed to my mom 3 times. She laughed each time and took the rings all 3 times. They've been living miserably together ever since. I'm 31 now. They built a separate living room and avoid each other. My dad says he regrets it to this day. My dad is a wonderful man, and every time I asked why he stayed with that wretched woman, he would say, "Because she's your mother," and he never goes into any more detail. If she says no, just move on. Narrator's commentary. Okay, so I laughed at the beginning because I thought it was going to be a cute, wholesome story. Nope, I was wrong. My bad. Whoops. Sorry. Damn, brother. That sucks. Next story. So for my other half's 30th, I phoned her and said, "Do you want an engagement ring or a dishwasher?" She chose the dishwasher. 14 years later, we're still together. In her defense, I had always been very anti-marriage and she thought I was joking. Also, washing dishes by hand sucks. I think she made the right choice. Next story. If a girl says no to a proposal, the guy should have known better than to ask. A good friend of mine who was only 19 at the time heard from her parents that her boyfriend of about 4 months was going to propose at midnight on New Year's in front of her entire family. She was terrified and did not want to say yes, but her parents were super insanely strict and threatened to throw her out of the house if she didn't say yes. I called her, I was drunk, at 11:58 and kept her on the phone for about 10 minutes. I was telling her bad jokes and getting every single person of the party I was at to say Happy New Year to her. Ruined the moment for the guy and he never asked. Oops, I ruined New Year's Eve 1991 for Kevin. Oh, we've been married for 28 years now. Next story. I'm a woman, but I spent a year asking my boyfriend to marry me on a regular basis. I'd say, "Want to get married?" And he'd say, "Yes." And I'd say, "Can I tell my parents?" And he'd say, "No." A straight up year, until finally we went on a little trip a couple hours from our apartment and he whipped out the letters he'd exchanged with my parents about wanting to propose. Just had our 6th anniversary. I cannot for the life of me figure out which are the happy ones and which are the sad ones when I start. I have never had a thread with so many subversions in it. Most of them have been for the better. Sweet. Awesome. But man, does it make it hard to read. Next story. It was rough. We cried together in the car on the way home. She loved me, but she wasn't ready. We talked about it in the following days. It felt like a setback, but looking back, it was actually a springboard to a deeper level of communication. 2 years later, she gave me an enthusiastic yes, and now we have a beautiful baby girl and 6 years of happy marriage. Next story. Not me, but a proposal I saw. I was vacationing in Las Vegas back in 2006 with my then family. We took in a show a day on the trip. The day after Christmas, we saw a magic show. About halfway through the performance, the magician had a young woman from the audience come up and assist with some trick. He did the meet and greet with her. She was on vacation with her boyfriend's family, blah, blah, blah. The magician does his thing, and suddenly the boyfriend appears out of some box that deceptively looked empty a second ago. The boyfriend gets down on his knee. Out comes the ring. He goes into his declarations of love and affection and rehash the last few years. It was a sweet proposal. She smiles, clasps her hands in front of her face, and says, absolutely nothing. We in the audience are all silent and waiting to cheer and applaud, waiting for her to say yes. It seemed like an eternity, but then the magician burst out with applause. He quickly guided the happy couple off stage and announced, "She said yes!" So we all cheered for the happy couple. What else was he gonna do? They had great seats at a table, center stage and down in front. We could see the happy couple and family. The poor girl sat by herself, and the dude huddled with his parents at the other side. I don't think they talked at all for the rest of the show. When I saw Las Vegas, I knew this was going to be a fun one. The proposal really did actually sound top tier if she wanted it. It doesn't sound like she wanted to be proposed to. Either that or didn't want to be proposed to like that. Maybe she has a lot of social anxiety or something. There could be other reasons, but either way, ouch. That did not go to plan. Next story. I've asked my girl twice so far, and both times she has said no. The last time she said, "Honey, why spoil everything?" She didn't have a good first marriage, and I understand her reluctance. Lately, I've made it plain that I still want to do this, and she told me, "I don't want to say no, but I'm not ready to say yes either." Her saying no is not a deal breaker because I know her history and I understand her. Patience will get us there when the time is right. Next story. Not a guy, but I set things up to be perfect. The two of us totally alone at sunset on a Sicilian beach, and he said no out of pure shock. He'd always expected it would be him asking me, not the other way around. Then his brain kind of caught up with what was going on, and he was horrified at himself for saying no like that. He told me of course he wanted to marry me, and he hadn't meant no as in he didn't want to marry me. It was more like, "No way, did you just ask me that?" But it came out wrong. We both agreed that this wasn't the proposal we'd want to remember forever, so we'd do it again properly sometime, and 9 months later, he proposed to me on my birthday in one of my favorite spots. To his relief, I didn't say no, and we've now been married for 10 years. Next story. I'm not a man, bi, female, but proposed to my girlfriend at the time. To be fair, there were a lot of complicating factors in our relationship, but regardless, I was head over heels in love with her and wanted to marry her. She said no. Our relationship continued for about a year, me hoping she would come around wanting to marry me. We had too many conversations about the seriousness of our relationship, and to each time she would say, "Why can't you just get over it?" Meaning me asking her to marry me. I eventually ended it when I finally realized she just didn't love me the same way I did her and that I deserved better. Unfortunately, that took longer than it should have to realize, but I'm one that if things end between us, then it's fully over, and I didn't want to do it prematurely. Everything worked out well, though. My now husband asked me to marry him, and we've been happy almost 10 years now. Next story. I managed a beautiful mansion bed and breakfast in the Hudson Valley years ago. We hosted weddings nearly every weekend and had the restaurant open otherwise. A man warned us that he was going to propose one quiet winter night. We had maybe 10-15 people in the dining room. He got down on one knee, and she said, "Can you get back up? We need to talk. I can't marry you." She said it so softly and kindly, but we could all see it going down. He looked pretty heartbroken. The rest of their dinner was mighty glum. Of all the ways to get shut down, it sounds like one of the better ones at least. I hope their talk was productive, that either they figured out they don't work for each other or they need more time or whatever. The fact that neither of them just stormed out is pretty good, right? Next story. My wife said yes, but I was still waiting for the other shoe to drop until the wedding day. She had rejected 2 men before me on marriage proposals and told me she was a bit of a commitment phobe. Her matron of honor slept over the night before the wedding and slept by the front door to make sure my wife didn't leave during the night, and if she did, to call me and let me know what happened so I could enact my backup plan. I had a backup plan in case she pulled a runner at the ceremony. She almost didn't go in on the day of. I was prepared just in case. Then she showed up. We got married and just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. She still breaks out in hives and has mini freakouts when she realizes how long we've been together despite having 2 kids, a house, a mortgage, etc. For those of you guys dealing with commitment phobes, tell them what you've got planned. I let my wife know months ahead of time that I was planning on proposing and gained insights that if I were going to do it, that it had to be a certain way. Never propose in public unless your girlfriend is into that. Also make sure that if you're going to propose, she's aware and that you know with certainty that's what she wants. Communicate, people. It isn't that hard. Next story. I know a guy who proposed and got a yes, but it later turned into a no. It was her birthday, so he said, let's throw a barbecue and invite the whole family over. She said, sounds great. And he invited everyone on both sides of the family. Parents, siblings, grandparents, cousins. She had no idea he was going to propose at dinner. Marriage hadn't even been discussed. She said yes to avoid chaos, but later had a long talk. They didn't stay together much longer after that. We still tease him about it every time he invites us to a barbecue at his house. Hey, wait a minute. You aren't going to try to propose to me, are you? Still gets a laugh every time. I'm glad you guys have fun with that. I hope he learned his lesson, though. That is definitely a situation to, take in, analyze, and be like, what went wrong here? Sounds like he can take it in stride, though, so hell yeah. Next story. We were at a friend's comic shop just chatting. He clicked on his computer and turned the monitor. Taco Bell wedding. I proposed on the spot. She said no. A few years after that, she told me the date and place we were getting married. It's been 10 years total together. Married to. Loved this woman to death and back. Next story. Found out she'd been dating a friend I had helped her to meet. Later, he proposed to her in a restaurant where a buddy and I had gone to eat. Worst coincidence ever. I ended up hearing the restaurant clap and whoop for them. Fortunately, we were on the other side, and that was the extent of it. Well, until they passed me on the highway when I was driving home. Second worst coincidence ever. It was like having someone step on your broken foot. Of course, they got married and then divorced because he had a wandering eye and followed up on it. As for me, I got married a lot later. My wife and I have been through plenty of medical issues together, but we've survived and are still happy together. But man, that prior experience was brutal. Next story. When I was 21, I got involved with one of my college teachers who was significantly older than me. Somehow, it kind of worked out and we were together almost 10 years. We had the whole house and dog thing worked out, but from about 5 years into it, we started taking separate holidays because neither of us were particularly interested in what the other wanted to do. One day, I had gone to his sister's place to pick him up from his most recent trip to Thailand. We lived in a regional city and his sister lived closest to the nearest international airport. So he calls me into the guest bedroom where he's been going through all his luggage and is surrounded by dirty holiday clothes and cheap trinkets. He pulls out a small glittery bag and hands it to me, saying, "This is for you. It's an engagement ring. Will you marry me?" I was shocked and panicked and said, okay. Then went out to the lounge room and called my best friend. She said it's okay to go back and say no, so I did. I went back in there and explained that I didn't want to get married. He just said okay and asked me not to tell anyone he'd asked. The next day at the beginning of the 4-hour drive home, he admitted that he accidentally got a happy ending the previous time he was in Thailand the year before. I was furious with him for essentially lying by omission the whole previous year, especially when we had banged maybe once during that whole period. I broke up with him then and there, and then had the most awkward 4-hour drive to continue through. I got the last laugh, though. I ended up finding and marrying a wonderful man who happens to be a massage therapist. So now I get all the happy endings, and the irony isn't lost on me. Next story. She told me I had waited too long to ask, 6.5 years, and that she was developing feelings for the assistant professor she was working with. So she used that opportunity to let me know she was in two minds about wanting to pursue that and end things with me. She yo-yoed on it for about 2 months, and then finally I insisted we call it a day. They're married and have a kid now. I'm sterile, so I guess if she has changed her mind on children, it was for the best. Next story. We'd been best friends for years and dating for a while after that. I started asking her what she would think of marrying me. She always would say something like she would love it or that she can't think of anything better. I finally decided to talk to her mom about it and she said she approved. I asked her a few months later and she was mad. She told me her mom told her I spoke with her about it and that I was an idiot for thinking she would want to get married, especially after I had heard for a while about how screwed up her parents' marriage and divorce were. I was completely blindsided. I'd prepared for a romantic day together, ending at a really nice restaurant where I could privately propose to her. When I asked her why she told me so many times she wanted to get married, she thought it was some sort of role-playing or something. I don't know what it means still. Apparently, I should have absolutely known she was against marriage just because her parents' marriage was crap. Next story. My ex proposed to me at a reunion show I played with a band I used to be in. We hadn't been together for like 8 months and had a really bad 2020 breakup. He was really into QAnon at the time. Ugh. He managed to get a bunch of my family and his family to the show, which wasn't unusual, but I didn't think much of it. About 3 songs into our half-hour set, he brought a round of tequila shots for the band. Also not unusual, and he delivered mine to me last. It had a ring in it, and he asked me to marry him while I was on stage in front of everyone there, including my boyfriend, now husband. All I said is, I'm not doing this with you right now. I downed the shot and another one, left the ring, and I was then forced to have to fumble through the rest of that show without being able to get that stunt out of my head. Worst show I've ever played by far, and I was so mad he did that to me. Seemed like a mind screw power play. I was so angry. The real kicker too was that the theme of the whole show was essentially take back the night kind of vibes. It was to create awareness about how women don't feel safe at bars or music venues because of how some men behave. The all-female band was utterly unsympathetic, and I left immediately. Haven't spoken to them since. I completely dropped out of the scene after that. Super screwed up all around. Next story. I was proposed to by a man 12 years older than me who had a child. I didn't want to be an active stepmom, so I said no. As in, I don't want to care for her as if she's my own, and he wanted that. I got pregnant and he proposed again after the birth, but the baby passed away after the proposal, but the wedding remained on. His grandparents paid for a nice ring, but unfortunately the crushing pressure to care for his daughter in place of mine was too much. I ran away, he pulled me back, but found out he was cheating after our baby's death anyway, so it was officially done. This is a true event, and the drama lives on. Next story. An ex, who had been a strange combination of addict, stripper, and accountant, proposed to me while we were on MDMA. I said I would like to answer the question when I wasn't high. I guess her trip went south and she dumped me 2 days later. Can't say I have any regrets as far as she's concerned. I did have a weird moment with another proposal. I'd found the love of my life, but we'd only been together about 6 months when I proposed. She said yes, but afterwards her energy got all weird and she admitted it felt rushed. I felt really hurt, but I said we could have a redo when she was ready. Luckily, things worked out. We did marry and have had a solid marriage for the last 8 years. Next story. My girlfriend and I were walking around our old Ivy League campus when I popped the question. Pulled my late mother's ring out of my wallet, but she said no. My sister had splurged on a nice bottle of champagne and everything. I booked the night train back home. Didn't want to be around bustling crowds after having my heart shattered. Although the silent sleepers might have been worse. Anyway, I found the real thing instead, who patched up the tapestry that she had shred. Is this a reference to something? This is oddly structured like a reference to something that I have no idea about. You know what I mean? It's like saying Ivy League college makes it sound too specific, but also just vague enough that I don't know. I'm confused. This is written weird. Maybe it's just me though. Next story. Not me, but my uncle and aunt. My uncle proposed to my aunt one day on the beach after a nice dinner. She said no because she said she wanted a man who knew what he wanted and she wasn't ready yet. After some conversations and talks, they continue dating. A few years later, he proposes again and she said yes. Now they have 5 kids, 3 of who are triplets and all girls. They're my favorite cousins ever, and I love my aunt and uncle. Sometimes things don't work out the first time around, so you try again later. Next story. I was told no during a successful marriage proposal. Does that count? We had just finished something and we were relaxing in bed with each other, and while it wasn't the big moment I was thinking of, it felt just right. I said, "Hey, you know I love you, and I know you love me. Would you marry me?" Her. No. Now, normally, you'd think this was a bad thing, a heartbreaking moment, or a major miscommunication in relationship readiness. But really, it was basically an inside joke. See, when we were first dating, she came over to my place one night after work. It was extremely late, like 2 a.m. or so. I didn't want to have to drive her home. So I offered her my bed and grabbed a thin blanket and laid down on the floor so we could keep talking until we both fell asleep. I was freezing on the floor, and when she woke up, she told me to get into the bed and cuddle with her for warmth. This is a proposition I could not refuse, and I climbed into the bed. As we're laying there talking and flirting, I looked into her eyes and asked, "Hey, can I kiss you?" And she giggled and said, "No." I accepted it and went back to flirting, talking, and later on she said I could kiss her, so I did. When I asked her why she said no originally, she told me I was the first guy who had ever bothered to ask, and she wanted to say no to see if I was serious about listening to her. So, looping back to the marriage proposal, it was basically a direct reference to that initial moment. She then laughed again and said yes. Next story. I said no to the first proposal because I thought it was too soon. It was. We hadn't really discussed a lot of the things that are important going into a marriage. He actually agreed, didn't bail. We waited and had those talks, and now we've been married 43 years. A no doesn't always mean the end of the relationship. Edit. Both proposals were very casual. The second was basically just a conversation and an agreement while we were lying in bed. If the first one would have been one of those over-the-top public extravaganzas, that would have been the end of it, because it would have meant he didn't know me at all. Next story. I proposed to my ex 3 times, and every single time she said no. One of her excuses was, "It's not the right time yet for us to get married. I still have to figure things out." Turns out she was cheating on me with her coworker, and she was just waiting for the perfect chance to dump me. Luckily, I was the one who initiated to break up with her. She got mad at me for giving up on her, but didn't know that I knew about her and her coworker. Thank God, I dodged 3 bullets there. Now I'm happily married to my wife for 2 years and counting. Next story. It was 3 years into our relationship, and about 6 months since her mum died unexpectedly. We were on holiday on Corfu, and I did the down on one knee thing. She said no, burst into tears, and did a runner. I caught up with her and we had a chat. She wanted to marry me, but the time wasn't right. For the next 8 years, I proposed once a year, but never on one knee. Every year, she politely turned me down, until I slowly realized it wasn't going to happen. Marriage was just too grown up. Then, on New Year's Eve, she asked why I hadn't proposed that year, and I said I thought she didn't want me to. Her response was, "Well, you should have." So I start to go down on one knee, and she gently punches me and says, "Not now, sometime later." About 7 months later, it's a starry evening, and I'm down on one knee under an olive tree in Kefalonia, and she says yes. It's our 18th wedding anniversary at the end of July. Next story. My mom, 18, who is a massive floozy, cheated on my Christian father, 19, with my sister's biological dad, 17. Of course, she wanted abortion to remove me from inconvenience. My father fought her out of it. Trailer park life drama bullcrap. My mom dumped my dad on the day she discovered she was 2 months pregnant with my half-sister with this other man. Needless to say, that man was horrible to all of us. This man was a drug addict, and my mom moved into his place. My sister and I got abused. My mother got beaten up. It was a scary few formative years for me from the tender ages of 2 through 6. This man was all smiley and fake in front of everyone, but a monster in private. Many terrorizing moments led to my mother finally leaving his butt for good, only after confrontation from my father. My father mentioned to me that before I turned 6, I begged him to stop this man, and when I wasn't satisfied with his answer, I went to my grandfather with a request to remove this man from Earth. That spooked my dad and grandfather. Why would a kid desire such a thing? My dad decided to address this with my mother directly one afternoon. It's a great thing he did, because it turned gears in my mother's head. I remember one night vividly when my mom snuck into me and my sister's shared bedroom around midnight. She told me to be quiet and pack up. We fled out of his mobile home to her mother's farmhouse, my Nana's, with a handful of suitcases and duffels. Easily one of the most relieving feelings I've ever felt. Despite everything, my mother turned her life around and became extra careful. She dated a good man for 15 years before she accepted his proposal. She turned him down 5 times before accepting his proposal to have a wedding on July the 7th, 2007. And they're still together in 2024. Next story. Not failed. My wife snuffed out my first attempt at a proposal, so I postponed it for almost a year. When she lost all hope and was ready to give up, I put my second proposal plan in motion. She worked at a chocolate shop. It was the day before Easter, so the place was packed. I sat at one end of the shopping plaza looking for a dude heading that way. The second guy I asked was game to help me out. The plan was to have him go into the shop and ask to have a box of chocolates made with a ring in the middle, after it needed to be delivered. My girlfriend/wife actually helped put it together. At the same time, I called the store informing a coworker that my girlfriend needed to be the one to deliver it to the pottery shop next door. I walked into the shop and said I was surprising someone. Could I sit in the corner for a few minutes? A few minutes later, my girlfriend walks in wearing bunny ears, looking for a guy in a white shirt. When she saw me, she was like, "What are you doing here?" Super confused. She went back to asking where the guy in the white shirt is. I stood up and stated, "The box is for you." Still confused, she said, no, it's the guy in the white shirt's box. I said, "No, open it. It's for you." It still didn't register completely. I walked over, grabbed the box, pulled out the ring, and properly proposed. It was funny. The pottery shop was a popular date place where you paint pottery and drink wine, so the place had about a dozen people in it. All the girls exploded when she said yes. All the dudes gave me the stink eye. When she walked back into her work, I guess everyone had stopped working when she left and was waiting at the door screaming and cheering as she walked in. I was totally fine with it, but I got left outside in the commotion. My job was over. Okay, I've never understood this bit, because I've heard it too where guys get upset when other guys propose around them. Is it really just because they think that's going to put the idea of marriage in their girlfriends' heads, and for some reason they're upset by that? Like, I don't really understand. What are they afraid of? Anyway, OP, super cute. Great work. Would have been not so good if the guy just ran off with the ring, though. Glad you picked a trustworthy dude. Or wait, did OP give the dude the ring to put in the cake, or was it he pulled it out after? I don't really know. Either way, glad you found someone to help you out. Next story. My dad proposed to my stepmom several times. Each time she said no. On the last one she said, "And don't ask me again." One day they left to work. He took a turn going the wrong way. She asked where they were going. He said, "To get married." "You told me to stop asking." They've been together for 25 years or so. Narrator's note, do not do this. Do not do this. I don't know how this worked out for this dude, but life does not work like that most of the time. That's just gonna make your partner really upset. This is a huge rom-com move that is simply not a good idea in real life. Next story. We ended up getting married. My situation is a little more complicated. My wife is Ukrainian, living in a foreign country, and nervous about moving to the US. She said she didn't want to get married, but wanted us to be together forever. At the end of the day, when she was ready, she was ready. Next story. My mom, my sisters, and I all said no the first time we were proposed to, for a variety of reasons. We all ended up marrying, and he asked eventually, and are all still married. Mostly happy. I have one crappy brother-in-law, otherwise good. For myself, it was literally nothing I had considered and felt shocked someone wanted to marry me. I needed time to think over it and to think through my feelings. I got proposed to around Easter and eventually said yes around the 4th of July. In general, we don't like to be surprised or rushed, so discussion beforehand would have been better. Thank God none of them were public proposals. Next story. Dude, I waited so long to propose that she actually said if I didn't propose within the year, she would propose herself. Couldn't let that ever happen, right? We're 28 years together, married for 20 this year. In my opinion, the key is to never propose publicly, never pressure your partner, and foremost, never make such a decision hastily. Get to know each other very well inside and out, and to live together for some years at least. Next story. We started dating in the spring of 1984. It was love the night we met. We spent the night talking and she basically moved in the next day. Fall of 85, I proposed, and she said no. I asked her a few more times over the next 6 months or so and gave up. In early 1989, over 4 years later, we're driving. She says, "You know that question you asked? You should ask again." I had no idea she was looking for a proposal. Eventually, she just told me what she was talking about when I couldn't get it from her hints. We got married in 91, have 3 adult kids, one still in college, and are still going strong. Next story. My ex and I talked about getting married and how I didn't want a huge gesture or huge ceremony because I think the importance should be on the promise you make when you get engaged and the rest of your lives, not a huge gesture or an expensive day. We'd dated for 6 years. He knew, I thought, every important thing there was to know about me, that my parents and I don't see eye to eye on things, that I'm deathly allergic to pollen, things like that. He proposed to me by sticking the ring box inside a giant bouquet of tropical flowers at my parents' house. I had to go inside with the flowers to see what he even wanted, and then we got to go to an emergency hospital visit because my lungs stopped working. Big surprise he's my ex. Next story. I proposed a proposal. I said I wanted her to think about getting married, but not to answer me right away. Take a few months, mull it over. Unless she already knew the answer was no. If she knew the answer was no, she should tell me right away. She didn't say no, but she was immediately very cold and only got more distant. I figured the answer was no. no. And when I told her that, she was actually angry with me and said that she had made it clear that the answer was no from the beginning. At first, I was confused because I specifically asked her not to do it in exactly that way, not saying no. But then I realized, she didn't have enough respect for me to not do the one thing I asked her not to do, so good riddance. Next story. I work at a high-end hotel. In the last year, I've had 2 people call ahead and ask what we can do to facilitate a proposal. We send a bottle of Prosecco and handwritten notes to people celebrating anniversaries, birthdays, or other occasions, but what do you write on a note for a proposal? And we do it as a favor, so we don't promise anything ahead of time. All we do is send a list of things they can buy to place in the room ahead of time and recommend our spa services as well. Both times you could tell that 1, it was going to be a surprise, and 2, they wanted help with it. Like, the effort of a proposal shouldn't come from other people than the one proposing, and as was already mentioned by others, never should be a surprise. Both times at checkout you could tell it was a very obvious no. If you aren't sure, you aren't ready. Next story. After my biological gramps, crappy dude, finally got kicked out by my grandma, a few years later after being fully committed to bringing up my dad and aunt and keeping them fed somehow, she finally let a handyman in her life who had his very own struggles. Grew up with 7 siblings, most of them in jail. He was the best of them with only a gambling and drinking habit. She got him through rehab, which was rare in the 70s. He let her have full control over his finances. They didn't even live together at that point. When he finally had his crap together and moved in a few years into their relationship, he proposed to her, but not in a romantic way. Her doing jobs left and right wherever she could to make money and taking care of the kids. She had no savings or anything prepared for rent in any sort. He already helped with utility bills. At least she got the house from my gramps attested to her by court, who was by then a wealthy lawyer but otherwise wouldn't have given her a penny, maybe buy the kids some clothes at times. And he did love her, but could never find the words for it, as he didn't experience love for the first 35 years of his life, which were miserable. So he proposed to her, calling it securing her, saving taxes, less paperwork, etc. She said she is not going to accept a proposal under these aspects. Took him almost 20 years to say he loved her. Proposed again with a romantic dinner and everything set up. Invited my dad and aunt back. Aunt was living out of country at the time. Before he could finish his sentence, Grandma said yes. They married after 22 years of being together, through good and hard times, and were married for 20 more years until he sadly passed away. Turns out 30 years of smoking a pack a day and working with asbestos, not great for your lungs. She is almost 90 now and still misses him every day. My D-bag of a grandpa still alive at the same age. Not to say he rather deserved it, but oh well. Next story. Her response. What made you think I wanted to get married? My thoughts. Well, we've been together for 8 years, own a house, own property, and we're both finally divorced. It's been steadily going downhill ever since. I need to stay put until my daughter finishes school in November. I don't expect to be together at Christmas. I haven't mentioned anything about it yet and won't be until November. Then my daughter will be going back home to her mother's, other side of the country. I'll sell/dispose of all of my stuff and be done. I'll be 55, homeless, hopefully working a job I hate, currently unemployed, in a province I hate. Fun times. Next story. I ended up breaking her heart. I wasn't romantically involved with her, but she was a friend that was very close and we would spend every free minute together. We both admitted to each other having feelings for one another, but never went any further. No matter if I was dating someone or she was, or if we drifted apart, our paths would often lead back to each other as if it were a movie scene. Eventually, I did ask. She said no. This didn't impact how we were with each other. Sometime later, I met someone else which she wasn't aware of. She told me she only sees her future with me and wants us to get married. If I asked her again, she wouldn't say no. I broke her heart when I told her I met someone else, and the engagement party is in a couple of weeks. That was the last time we spoke to each other. Narrator's commentary. OP, I hope you don't feel too guilty about this. You kind of made a mutual agreement that you weren't going to pursue a relationship with one another. The fact that she waited, too long, that's not really on you. You've got a life to live and you sound like you're probably happy with who you're with now. So good for you. I hope she finds the right person for her too, but you gotta take matters into your own hands. That wasn't the path that was working out, so you found somewhere new. Or somewhere else. It's not like you were ever with her. Anyway, what I'm saying is, OP, you did fine. Next story. I was distraught for months, but eventually worked past it. Mostly because my feelings were invalidated, as if I really loved her, it wasn't a big deal, she wasn't ready, even though she couldn't give me any reasons. We're together for 3 years, stayed for another 3, most of which were long distance because of graduate school. I worked and made inroads with a lab at the same school she went to and was planning on transferring next semester. Then she started emotionally cheating on me with a guy friend that she knew had feelings for her. We had convos before that point, and I told her I trusted her to navigate that friendship in a way that respects our relationship. She said she would. She then said it was poly or break up, so we tried poly for a few months, and she ended up breaking up with me when it was clear it wasn't working for any of us. Now I'm married to my beautiful and trustworthy wife, celebrating our first-year anniversary, together for 5. And now I don't wake up to anxiety nightmares nightly, although it took a good 3 years at least to get there. Next story. My grandfather asked my grandmother 5 times. She said no the first 4, and on the 5th time, he said, "If you say no this one, I'm never asking again." So she said yes because she was worried and no one else would ever ask her. She was 19. She was the most amazing woman anyone has ever met. Total strangers will tell me how lucky I am to have her as my grandmother. My grandfather is semi-famous, has a movie made about him. The movie was basically about what a great guy he was. A household name played him. Yet he got the better end of the arrangement with her. Both were great, but she was amazing. Next story. Not a marriage proposal, but a "do you want to go out?" proposal. She and I were best friends forever. We were always doing things together, having a great time. I figure, hey, why not take it to the next step and call each other boyfriend and girlfriend? She would have been the first black woman I dated, by the way. This is important. She said no. She explained, "You're a great guy and I have a lot of fun with you, but look, you're a white Jewish guy and I'm a black woman. It would never work out." I accepted that. We stayed friends because I figure hanging out with her as friends was better than not hanging out at all. A couple of weeks after I asked her, I got a call from her. "Guess what? I got a boyfriend." Oh, that's nice. Then she described him. A white Jewish guy. What happened afterwards was I moved across the country. Not because of her, but because I got a great job offer. I haven't heard from her since. Next story. This was me. She broke up with me soon afterward because if marriage was what I wanted, then she felt like she was holding me back, and I was better off finding someone who I wouldn't have to, quote, wait around for. I was completely devastated at the time, but she was right in retrospect, and I did it in the most idiotic way possible too, though I really meant it. We'd only been together a couple years, and I was 21 and she was 19. Didn't even talk about it with her first. We both went on to have a few serious relationships after that, but stayed friends. Then, about 6 years after the fact, we ended up reconnecting romantically. It's been another 4 years since then, and I'm extremely freaking grateful every day. Next story. My wife and I agreed to get married and just did. No proposal. But we did witness a bad proposal at a restaurant. The guy got on one knee, spilled his heart, and she said no. He got up, clapped his hands and said, "Well, that's that," and walked out of the restaurant. His girlfriend, or ex-girlfriend I guess, sat there and didn't move as he left. All this happened before we ordered. We stayed for about an hour and she was still there. We have always wondered what happened to them, but I assume it wasn't good. This dude got up after a failed marriage proposal like a white dad leaves a group gathering. "Well, that's that. See everyone later." You know, both hands slap the thighs and all that. There was probably some underlying stuff there, and I can't imagine it was as nonchalant as I'm saying it, but it is a funny image. Next story. My in-laws are common law married. I remember when I was dating my husband that they got into heated arguments a few times because my mother-in-law wanted to get married at the courthouse and my father-in-law said no multiple times. After my husband and I tied the knot, I guess that put a fire under father-in-law's butt because he bought a ring and proposed to my mother-in-law. She said no. They stayed together and all, but now she lives with us and he gives her an allowance. It's a weird situation. Next story. I was a tutor for other students in college, and one of my 2Ds that I've been helping for 2 trimesters brought out a ring and proposed. I was shocked and I was sure he was heartbroken, but we didn't know each other on that level. I left the tutoring place afterwards mainly due to graduating, but I felt very sad and a little relieved afterwards. The incident wasn't in a public place, so it wasn't a dramatic letdown. He was a nice kid. I felt bad for him. I did see and recognize him by chance at a cafe in town a year later while I was in grad school, and he was with a female friend, so I felt happy for him. Whoa. Some people propose without asking their girlfriends or talking with the person they're proposing to at all about it. That's bad. Proposing to someone you aren't dating? Whole other level, dude. What was this? This was the biggest Hail Mary of all time. Next story. I'd been dating this girl for 3 years. Things were going great. We clicked on many levels. She made me laugh and I made her laugh. We were very comfortable together. Everything just felt so right. I got a ring, somehow got her ring size without her suspecting anything, and I asked her father for his blessing. I wanted things to be a surprise. I had things set up, was going to propose at my apartment so it wasn't public or embarrassing for her because I knew she would not like that. She, being nerdy like me, had mentioned she liked the homunculus, a spatial representation of the real estate that certain body parts occupy in your brain in relation to other parts. For example, the sensory homunculus has giant hands, lips, tongue compared to the proportional real size. So knowing that, I got a homunculus sculpture off Etsy. I got rose petals, candles, put the ring on the homunculus statue's oversized hands, just setting the mood. I ask her to come over without raising any suspicion. She comes over, lights are dimmed. She rounds the corner from the front door with me on one knee, the candlelight, the ring, the homunculus. I thought to myself, this is perfect. Well, I barely got the question out before she noped out of there like a bat out of hell. Crushing to say the least. I think she said no, but honestly, she got out of the door so quickly she might not have said anything. Stunned is putting it lightly. The next 48 hours was a maelstrom of emotion to say the least. I tried reaching out and she said she needed time to sort things out and to not get in touch with her before she could. I was pretty convinced it was over. Finally, she calls and she says, "I've thought things through and I accept." I have the homunculus on our mantle now and I'm just waiting for one of our kids to ask about it. Let me tell you about that one, Timmy. I can't take this story seriously, man. Have you guys seen the homunculus that this guy's talking about? I have. This is setting the mood for you? Bro, I know a lot of nerds. I'm a nerd myself. This is on a level I can't even comprehend. And I should clarify, I'm not trying to, yuck anyone's yum here. But the sensory homunculus? That's what we're putting the ring on to get married? They say you gotta find someone who matches your freak, and hey, I guess they did. Hell yeah, guys. Next story. It wasn't exactly a no. Rather, she asked me, "Did you get my mother's blessing?" Her dad had passed. That's something I never thought I had to do. I awkwardly put the ring away, almost crashed the car driving us home, and cried in her driveway a bunch. A few months later, asked her mom for permission, and now we're planning a wedding. But I still refuse to go back to that restaurant out of sheer embarrassment. I'm assuming you hadn't talked a whole lot about a proposal if that hadn't come up as one of the important things she needed. Anyway, sounds like things worked out just fine. You got everything sorted, almost crashed the car, but hey, near-death experience just brought you closer after that. OP's probably married by now, so congratulations, I hope it went well. But that, for now, is our last story of the day. I hope you have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.